Monica, we're gonna get to work. First woman director of the NCI. About time. Okay. Now, tell us about your Shelby Mustang and cattle roping. I have to assume that the Shelby Mustang convertible, and I hear you drive at very high speeds, and the cattle roping. So did this prepare you for Washington? Talk a little bit about that before we get into the other questions. Cattle roping had to help you a bit, right?
So the Shelby, well, let me just say, it's a really powerful, fast car, and that's wonderful to have. But you have to be really careful not to hit potholes. That's bad. Cattle roping, well, I don't know. It's I think wrangling of all sorts is what we all need to do. We live in very complex environments. I can't imagine one more complex than cancer research and Washington. And so
I know you'll do a good job. Okay, so Monica, why did you come here? Tell us why you took this job.
Oh, goodness. Well, so I can't imagine a greater privilege than being able to join the incredible team at NCI. Right there, that would be, certainly the highlight of, I think, anyone's career. It's just amazing. I'll tell you that, and finally at a time when we have a president and First Lady who are really devoted to cancer and truly want to make a difference. I'm a presidential appointee, that's my boss, and so I couldn't imagine having a better grounding in the job or support for the job that I want to do. But I'll tell you, I was worried if I would be the right person for the job, and so...
Why?
Well, it's a big job. So I'll tell you, Ellen, I called up, when this first possibility, do you want to look at this? I called up one of my very, very dear friends, and someone I can really trust to tell me the truth. And I asked him, do you think I could do this job? And he told me, oh yeah, I think you're going to be great at this job. Let me tell you why. You're kind of annoying. He said, you never take no for an answer. And so, hey, come on, Ellen, you and I share a lot in common.
Yeah, I think so. I think we're gonna shake a little hay. Is that the way you say it on the ranch, however it is? I don't know. So, welcome.
Thank you.
And thank you. There's no question there is a huge amount to get done, and and resources are finite, and making smart decisions are really important. So for 100 years, we've been talking about clinical trials and simplicity of trials and the complexity of trials, and getting them into the community. What can you do? If you're going to shake it up a little bit, we'll talk a little bit pragmatic, but tell me what you think we can do in a reasonable time frame before we get too long in the tooth.
Well, you said it, clinical trials are really complicated, but let me tell you, one of the things I think we share entirely with FDA as our partners is that it's our job to bring the patients and their caregivers, the doctors, and sometimes their family, what they need. That is our complete focus. What do they need? What answers do they need? And sometimes it's, answers to does a particular drug or therapeutic approach works? Other times it can be, is there a method that really helps quality of life? And is there something, and but it really boils down to that. Clinical trials have got to serve the needs of the patients and their care providers, and that's what we're focused on. So now you talk about designs. How do we streamline?
There's a lot of bureaucracy, both at the FDA, the NIH, and the companies, and do we add layers and layers of complexity that we can't keep them simple or meaningful?
Yes, of course we can keep them simple and meaningful if we really focus on what question are we addressing that this patient really needs, and we make sure that our study designs and our study approaches are addressing that need, and focus on that and addressing that need in a timely manner. And I do think if that's what we're focused on, we can start to eliminate some of the other things that have held us back and think differently. I really do, you're right. There's too much bureaucracy, and there are, certainly the academic community, I can say that's where I just came from. The academic community is always, can make things more complicated too, because we want to learn so much. Sometimes that in itself can be an impediment. So we really have to look at how we can address what the patient needs, first and foremost, in the most efficient, cost-effective, and above all, inclusive possible way. I think that inclusion is also bringing another mandate to us that's very powerful, because if we're going to get clinical trials into every corner of our society, which is absolutely what we have to do, we've got to be smart and strategic and streamlined about them, or we won't. So that's driving behind a lot of the innovation we need to do.
So how do you change culture? When Rick Pazder came to us for Breakthrough, how many years ago? I don't know, a long time ago. And we got it through, and what we didn't expect is that it would change culture. It changed the way we did trials in the academic environment, at companies, and even everyone, no one understood what it was, but it changed culture because there was a mandate to do it. It was a statutory requirement. It was, how can we do that? How can we change culture when academics want to ask a lot of questions, and FDA has a lot of questions, and companies want to make sure their trials are pristine? How do we get this done in a way where we're rigorous, but we change culture? What can we do? What can you do?
Focus on the core principles. The core principles are getting the patients what they need and doing our research in a way that really produces results that are accurate and reliable so that they can change care. That's very, very important. And so if that is the primary focus and you're innovating around that focus, that's how I think progress can be made.
So I don't want to call you Czarina because it's actually not a very good term these days, but you are head of the National Cancer Institute. So to get these patients or get these meaningful trials, how can you do that? How can you, within the elements that you control, and of course there's the dynamic duo between you and Rick. I want to be part of that a little bit, but anyway,
So I think maybe one of the things we want to do is we want to integrate clinical research and clinical trials, but clinical research into the clinical care environment. And we keep talking about this, but there are so many things that have made research one direction, incredibly labor intensive, set aside and parallel to clinical care. There are a tremendous amount of ways where we can merge those two worlds with data systems, and with care design of trials so that they fit into care delivery. Those are two of the big, those are two I think that are some of the more powerful examples I can give you. And finally, if we're going to integrate clinical research into the clinical care environment, and this is big, we have to meet the needs of our clinical care providers to be able to conduct and participate in this research. We can't decide we're throwing more burden and mandates on them. So again, trial design is key. Does it serve the needs of the patient? Does it fit within the clinical trials environment in a way that can, that doesn't introduce excessive burden, and that really complements what happens in care delivery.
So how do you say no to those that want to ask a lot of questions? And they want to continue to go on and on and on and on, and we'll get to lung pragmatica in a little bit, and that was an example. But how? So obvious the patient focus in meaningful trials. Where do you start?
Well, we can talk about. Let's talk about pragmatica. That's a great example. Why not? I think it's a great example. I'm told that I don't know. Is that the real name? Have we settled on the name?
FDA is making me a little.
That's Dr. Pazder's name.
It's making me a little bit crazy. So. It's pragmatica, then it's lung pragmatica, and then it's not pragmatica, then it's lung. It's okay. It's lung pragmatica.
I think that's a great example because I've been speaking in generalities. Let's get to a specific.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's drill down. Okay. You've got Lung Map, which has been a wonderful program.
And by the way, I do want to, note that Julie Gerberding, the head of the FNIH, is here today, and we're thankful for that, and that came out of Lung Map, and Roy Herb said he's going to watch. If I don't mention Lung Map, he's going to torment me. But okay.
So you have a result in patients with non-small cell lung cancer with advanced disease that came out of Lung Map. There's a signal here, but we need to know more. We need to know whether a 2-drug combination can really benefit patients with recurrent or advanced lung cancer, right? And the goal is to understand what is the contribution of this new two-drug combination, which looks good in an early trial but needs more definitive testing. So first, what is the real benefit to those patients? Communities, the real benefit to those patients is extended survival.
Right.
The drug, it turns out, has been studied, the combinations have been studied enough that FDA partners are there with you designing the study. FDA partners say, we have enough data on this combination to say we're pretty confident of the safety in this population. That's great. So the study now it is for patients who have the disease. It's going to have, as I understand it, correct me if I'm not right, it's going to be, the research team is going to be, research clinicians who are familiar with treatment of patients with that disease.
And we'll get into the community. We'll get
right, more into the community. What's the requirement? Well, you've got a physician who really knows how to treat this disease. Of course, that's critical. You have to make sure that these patients are safely cared for, and that physician feels there's equipoise in a randomization to either standard of care versus this 2-drug combination. And the outcome, the data collected, is going to be overall survival. It's not going to be a huge list of concomitant medications. It's not going to be adverse events with start and stop dates. It's not going to, telling you about a lot of things that we kind of have a knee-jerk reaction and just put into our studies because often that's what we've done before.
Interesting question.
It's not what was needed here. It's not what was needed here. And so this is what's needed. It's very streamlined. I'm really happy to tell you about this. This is like the best part because one of the things we need to do is get these answers for patients much faster.
Absolutely.
Okay? I happened, because I was kind of a fly on the wall with some of this. I know you started designing this study in what, July? July-ish. I happen to know, because I heard from Jim Dorshow, because this was a collaboration with NCI, the National Clinical Trials Network, Lung Map, FNIH, Lung Map, FDA. So I happen to know that you started doing this all in July. That study is going to the Central IRB today, and it will open in January.
And if they don't say yes, we're going to kill them.
Well, I'll leave that to you. I'll leave that to you. That is amazing.
So this
is what we need.
Without leadership. So Rick was Harpreet. We're passionate about it. They pushed it because they wanted answers. I will tell you, we did get there with the groups.
As were the partners at NCI, right?
Yeah.
They were also very, very passionate about moving this
But they
forward.
wanted to ask a lot of questions that we had to kind of get simpler. So,
Well,
but we got there. We got there. We got there. And
well, that's nothing wrong with what you just said. You know, the give and take in how you do these things. Okay, they wanted to ask, you're talking about how do you change culture. This is a great example. Sure, they wanted to ask a bunch of questions, add a bunch of questions, but you all were lightning focused on the goal and everybody got on board.
so
That's a big win.
Without the leadership, though, of Pastor, the people, and Harpreet and the people, and Roy and others, but would we have gotten there? So if somebody said this is a good idea, would we ever have gotten this done in 6 months? Never. Never. So how do we do more of them? How do we go to do more of these, and how do we get them? Not every trial, we completely understand not every trial can be or should be Pragmatica.
Right.
So if this is something that you believe in, particularly when we want to find simple answers and do it in a timely basis, how do we do it in other disease areas, in other cancer sites?
Yeah, so, question by, again, back to the core principles. What do the patients and doctors need? And then fit for purpose research design. Really, and so what does that mean? It's got to be partnership with the patients, those who are actually treating the patients, and those who really can understand and design and conduct infrastructure, provide infrastructure to conduct the research. I think we ought to put a call out here to the two pharmaceutical partners who joined in this too. Let's not forget them.
Absolutely.
July to January for a study start, that also meant that we had our industry partners step up and agree to what they needed to do too. So, it's, no, one size is never going to fit all, but I'll just say it again. It's focusing on answering the questions the patients and doctors need.
This is why being annoying is important.
That's the focus. And then finally, partnerships.
Yeah.
This trial's a great example. Could not have been done with just NCI, just FDA, just
FNI.
Partners have to be aligned and ready to work together.
Correct.
So that's what we're going to do more of.
We look forward to it, and we'll hold you accountable.
Thank you.
We are going to do more and more and more of them in other disease areas. So let me see. We talked about Pragmatica. Let's talk a little bit about getting out of our silos. So you have done an exquisite job of the dynamic duo, and working with, I think, with ARPA and with the Moonshot and CMS. How do we get, and I think it's incredibly important to get out of our silos and really prioritize these things that are most important. Moonshot, we think Pragmatica will be a Moonshot project. How do you see yourself interacting? I know you're already interacting with Rick, and they were having a dinner with Rick and Rob and Monica, and I wasn't invited. I said, well, I'm going to come and be the waitress. But anyway, but no, what are you doing to address getting out of the silos?
Getting out of the silos. Well, I'm a passionate proponent of data sharing. I feel like patients trust us to be on a trial. They trust us with their data. We owe it to them to honor their wishes to use that as broadly as we possibly can. That's really kind of a sacred trust. We have to do that. So we have to eliminate the roadblocks. I think there are two entities, for lack of a better word, that can tell us we can't use the data. The patient and an institutional review board. Of course, we all have to be answerable to those who oversee our ethics, fine. But other than that, we need to honor those patients' wishes to the fullest extent possible. Now, why don't we share data? It's hard. It takes money. It takes time. It takes collaboration. It takes structures. Because, obviously, we all want to do it. It's just, so building the structures and systems that allow us to share data well, we've been talking about it for at least a decade. We've been making really great progress. I can tell you, NCI has, I think, made tremendous progress in structures and the ability to share data. We still have to do more. And we have to do it across all.
Your annoying characteristics, where are you going to start first?
Well, I have one little advantage right now, okay? We have an administration, a president and first lady who told me that they want to see an all-of-government approach to overcoming cancer. So what that means to me, if that means all of government, let's just start with those silos, right? And you can think about just the agencies across Health and Human Services. And I'm so delighted we have such a wonderful partnership with FDA already, that we can not only share data, we can work together to conduct trials. Extending that across the other agencies in government that can help us do this is what we need to do. And finally, I'll just also give a call out to the Office of the National Coordinator, who has been working really collaboratively with our FDA partners and NCI and the broad community to introduce some of the structures that we really need to share data from the clinical environment, which is probably the highest mountain we need to climb.
So, Monica, as you know, ARPH has a lot of money, and we're all very happy and very excited about it. But the downside of ARPA were potentially two. One of them is, will we take away money from the NIH or NCI? That's a big deal. And initially we were promised no, we don't know really where that's going to wind up. But how are you going to work with them? That's one question. The second question is, the prevailing thoughts were, NIH is too slow. NIH is too slow. ARPA can get it done quickly. No difference. It's technology. How do you get this, whether it's real, whether it's imagined, whether partially true or not, how do you get that to be not the talking point?
So I'm glad you asked this question, actually. ARPH is a brand new agency. It was just created. It has a brand new director, Renee Wegerson. I'm delighted to tell you that Renee and I have had many, many discussions already about how we, NIH, NCI have resources, ARPH has resources, we have common goals, we collaborate effectively and work together, and no silos. No silos between the two of us, so that really ARPH is an additive, it's additive. It in no way, at least the way I see it shaping, the way Renee is leading it, and the concepts behind why it was formed, in no way will detract from what we need to do, and in fact will be a great partner and complement to what we're doing. Yeah, and soon, not now. I mean, she's setting up a brand new agency, just started, back same time I started at NCI. Soon we will be able to share specifics so that it's going to be really clear when people see what kind of things ARPH are taking on and why they fit into that mechanism. And why, it's not going to change or detract from what NCI has to to
Well, also,
very optimistic.
You have to advocate for funding. I mean, there
Right.
is that. I mean, we know that we have to, we're coming into challenging times now. Certainly working with CMS is going to be really important. And we have the Foundation for NIH, we have at Reagan-Udall, so we have the ability to do public-private partnerships, which are incredibly important. So I have no doubt with your leadership and your personality and your perseverance, maybe that's a better word than annoying, right?
Than not saying, yeah, okay.
Yeah, I know, whatever, it doesn't matter. The goal, the issue is you're going to get the job done and you're going to prioritize and you're going to get out there. Let's talk a little bit about diagnostics and a little bit about the accuracy of precision medicine and the variability. And many, particularly in the academics, may be rolling their eyes, but it is incredibly important if you're going to have a diagnostic in LDT for a patient, because they assume, any patient who has a test, any place assumes it's accurate, okay? I don't know of any patient that goes into any facility, has a test and said, is the test accurate, okay? The assumption is, we know that it may not, particularly as we get more complicated and we are going to design a precision medicine trial with that diagnostic. How do we get there so we get the data to know that in fact there are some standards? What can you do?
Well, I don't think anybody disagrees that on the importance of diagnostics, right? So again, back to the doctor and patient trying to make a decision. A diagnostic that indicates what the right treatment is, if it's not accurate, you can do the wrong treatment. That's just as harmful, if that happens, as having a drug that is not the right drug for that patient, right? It's the same thing. So the diagnostic, it's absolutely critical that we understand those diagnostics with as much rigor and attention to both risks and benefits as we understand any therapy, right? So that we know. I can give you a little bit of insight toward how NCI is approaching the multi-cancer detection assays, for instance, okay? What an amazing possibility that we could diagnose cancer earlier in a more treatable stage, that we could maybe even identify people who we can't detect their cancer yet with our current ability to image or evaluate them, but even this test might be an indicator of someone who's got a cancer so early we can't detect it, but we could target them for interception therapies, and save lives that way. So the potential of these assays is huge.
Can we get this done in a timely basis, Monica?
I'm sorry?
Can we get this done in a timely basis? Because making it perfect can take 10 years.
So we have got to answer just back to the question has to be answered in a way that we really know we understand what the test can do. They have to be reliable, that we have to understand the sensitivity and specificity and the relationship to benefit for the patient and not risk. I know you're all very well aware of that. I can tell you that NCI is beginning a test, the Vanguard evaluation of the MCDs, that will be testing 24,000 patients, and mortality is the endpoint. So it's going to be evaluating the ability of these tests to reduce mortality. Critically important. And then based on the results of the earlier Vanguard study, there will then follow a larger definitive study that will address all the other things we need to know, the impact on our health system, et cetera, of this new test. Thoroughly understanding risks and benefits of these new tests. And that study is right now, our best guess is going to be 250,000 patients. What's going to make it go fast?
Yeah,
that's what you're asking.
My eyes are rolling, yes.
What's going to make it go fast? Getting the studies streamlined, fit for purpose in the community, accrued to as rapidly as possible. The faster we can move these studies through to complete accrual, the faster we get answers. You can't compromise on a mortality. You can't compromise on the time to the endpoints. But what we can do faster is make sure they're designed so that we can accrue them very rapidly, and we have an adequate community buy-in of this for these studies so that they get very, very rapid accrual. To that end, NCI is getting ready to launch a new cancer screening network. Because, if we're going to do this right, we've got to reach the primary care community, and we've got to reach the people in a very diverse community who see these patients, the patients who are at highest risk. Right. So it's a whole, that's big investment right there, but that's what we've got to do if we're going to do it quickly.
So what keeps you up at night, besides me?
All those texts you send. That's what keeps
Francis
me up.
Collins said he thinks I sent him more texts than anybody else. I don't think that's true, by the way. But no, what do you worry about getting done, and what are the things that are most urgent?
What do I worry about getting done?
And this is professionally, not personally.
What really keeps me up at night the most is concern over our provider population, our workforce, our clinicians on the front lines that we need for research. Even our the postdocs and fellows and researchers in the basic science laboratories as well, our overall workforce, I think it's a more difficult time for everyone, and it's especially more difficult time for anyone who touches a patient with cancer and is both caring for them and having all the other challenges of our environment. So if you had to ask me the one thing that I think really gives me the most concern and we need to pay attention to very closely, and for which I don't have the answers yet, we're looking for everyone to help with these answers, it's how do we better support our workforce?
Yeah, it's a really huge issue. Monica, I am incredibly excited about you being at NCI because you are a force of nature. You are going to not just talk, you're going to do, you're going to implement, and you're going to partner and get it done. I mean, this is a wonderful fit, and I think with working with the community, working with obviously patients, the focus, and working with your dynamic duo and others are really going to make things happen. We're so happy that you're here, and I think all of us, are incredibly invested in your success, your energy. I like the fast driving. I'm a horrible driver, so nobody would want me to drive fast. But having said that, you're going to get there in a careful way, without the potholes. Without the potholes.
Thank you, Ellen. Thank you.